Okay guys, welcome back to another video by Jed. I just want to start off with a wee clip for Braveheart. I know this film isn't historically accurate, but it's got lots of little bits in it that are close to the truth. So we'll have a look first.
We would stop him.
Who is this person who speaks to me as though I needed his advice?
I have declared Philip my High Counselor.
Is he qualified?
I am skilled in the arts of war and military tactics, sir.
Are you? And tell me, what advice would you offer on the present situation?
So guys, although this isn't historically accurate because the guy that gets chucked at the window, he doesn't actually get chucked at the window, he gets banished to Brittany or somewhere like that. And after Edward I dies, Edward II brings him back and he's his little playboy, his lover boy. And this is where I think the Scots get worried. They're worried when Edward I dies, they're going to be ruled by a homosexual king and it's going to turn into God knows what. At least Edward I was a strong warrior king, as you've seen there. Can double the age. His son sort of slapped him around, like threw the other guy like he's nothing, because he was a crusader king. He was a knight. He was probably just back for the Holy Land as he's walking in the door in his full regalia. Anyway, the point of this video here that I'm making is I've been doing research, and I've got to say that all this squabbling over the king of who is meant to be king and this and that, I would say that Edward I Longshanks has more right to the throne than Bruce or the guy that Bruce murdered in the church, John Comyns. Even John Comyns probably had a more direct line to the throne. So this whole idea that Bruce is some kind of saviour, and it's just no cutting it with me, guys. I'm sorry, but it seems to be that the Bruces snuck their way into Scottish royalty through the back door, just like the same with the Stuarts. They snuck their way into the back door and they held the door open for the Stuarts. And then we get the Jacobites and we get these foreigners getting the Scottish people fighting against each other, killing each other and leaving us. And like Bonnie Prince Charlie and these people. It's always about these rich people getting the Scots to fight each other. And it's happening now. They're still doing it today. They're dividing and conquering. They're putting in false leaders, just like the Middle East. Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, it's like the powers that be put these people in as puppets to rule these countries as sort of like puppet states. But the leaders get too big for their own boots. And they start trying to take control of the countries, and that's when they get deposed. And it's like Bruce was that. Edward I chose him to be a puppet king because that's all he was. Well, no him, he chose John Balliol, but the fact that Edward I got this last say in who was king proves that Edward I had more right to the kingship of Scotland than these imposters, Bruce and Balliol, because these guys were Normans. And Henry, fair enough, Longshanks was a Norman as well, but at least he had a more direct link to the Scottish royalty. And in fact, Longshanks has a direct link to Malcolm Canmore III of Scotland, going back to 1058 to 1093. And that's through his marriage to St. Margaret. But anyway, we're going to look at Bruce first. We're going to decide who's got the best line to the Scottish kingdom. And like I said, look at the Bruces. The first mention of the Bruces is 1070. This is as far as we can go back here, to Adam de Brus, Emma de Ramsey. They have a son, Robert de Brus. Obviously, he's got a wife. It's all English wives. I never wrote their names down. I could do that for you if you are interested, but it doesn't really interest me to write down these English wives because I'm trying to find out when the De Brusses got into Scottish nobility. And it seems to have started somewhere around here, 1212, with William de Brass, who was the son of Robert de Brass, the second Lord of Annandale. This is 1194. So he married Christina, daughter of Uhtred of Galloway. And this daughter has a link to Henry I, an illegitimate link to Henry I, but still a link, and the Fergus of Galloway. So there's a sort of backdoor thing going on here with William de Brass and Christina. So there's the first sort of connection to Scottish royalty. It's not the best, but he's getting in there, the de Brusses. This is 1212. So they had 4 kids: Robert de Brass, John de Brass, William de Brass, and Agatha de Brass. We're going to look at this next, Robert de Brass. He was the 4th Lord of Annandale. And he was married to Isabel of Huntingdon, who was the 2nd daughter of David, the 8th Earl of Huntingdon, who was a prince. His granddad was David I of Scotland. So even though David, the 8th Earl of Huntingdon, he was never a king, he was a prince, his granddad was David. So Isabella, so they've got this link through Isabella here. And they had 2 kids. And here, Robert the Bruce, the famous Robert the Bruce, his dad, well, before Robert the Bruce was born, his dad's dad was on crusade with Edward I in the Holy Land. And apparently Marjorie of Carrick's husband was on crusade with them as well. He got killed. So the granddad sent word back to Scotland, to Robert, his son, to tell Marjorie that the husband had died, and there was a marriage proposal there too. So he got in the back door as well, and she was connected to the Scottish royalty from the Isles. So there we go. We've got this sort of back and forth, and this was a sneaky one as well. And this is Robert de Brass getting through the back door of the royalty, and this is where his claim to the Kingdom of Scotland is. And you see, it isn't until 1212 that they start getting into the Scottish stuff. They had lots of land in England. In fact, the Brusses guarded Carlisle Castle for Edward. That's another story. But anyway, that's a Bruce lineage. That's my research, how far I can go back for the Bruces. So they do have a connection to Scottish royalty, but what if I was to say that Edward Longshanks had a more direct claim? And it comes from right back to Malcolm III, Canmore of Scotland. He was a Canmore king, 1058 to 1093. His second wife was St. Margaret. She was an Anglo-Saxon. These were the royalty that came as refugees after William the Conqueror. The Normans took over England. This band of refugees, royalty, came up to Scotland. And Malcolm married St. Margaret. And they had 8 kids. Edith, she ended up being Matilda of Scotland. She was Henry I's wife. And this is William the Conqueror's son, Henry I. So they have a daughter, Matilda. Matilda marries Henry V, who was a German. He dies in 1125. They have no kids. But she ends up marrying Geoffrey V, Count of Anjou. And this is where the Plantagenet line starts, with Empress Matilda and Geoffrey. Through Henry II, their kid, Henry II. He's the first of the Plantagenet lines. Then John, then you can have John, then Henry III, then Edward I Longshanks. So this line goes right back to Malcolm III, and it's not as confusing as Bruce. Bruce is a bit more. So my claim is that Edward I Longshanks was probably the true king of Scotland over both these foreigners, Bruce and Commons, Balloy. And why are we fed the hammer of the Scots? Why aren't we told that Edward I probably had more a direct claim to Scottish royalty? Even though I think Malcolm sold Scotland down the river. They're all fighting. They're all these people are all interbred. The English, the Scottish. We never hear about the common man. So we shouldn't be worshipping people like Bruce or Edward Longshanks. But we need to understand that these people were on the same side. Just like the Battle of Roslin, we never hear about in 1303, where the Scots defeated 30,000 English with only 8,000 Scots. And the Bruces were on Edward's side during that time. But you never hear about that because it's just Bruce and Stuart propaganda hiding this stuff. Anyway, guys, hope you've enjoyed my wee history lesson. Hope you have a good day. Cheers.